People pleasing is not a benevolent action. What you're actually doing is hurting yourself and damaging your relationships. Everyone, welcome back to the Edgy Entrepreneur Podcast, where we are in season 2, which is all about relationships. And we believe that if you want to be an influential leader in your community, household, and place of business, then you need to master the art of creating meaningful relationships. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Daniel Tribby, a healthcare entrepreneur and a coach for those of you who are also healthcare entrepreneurs.
And hello, my name is Coach Oriana, and I'm a life and personal performance coach, a certified relationship coach, author, and speaker.
She hit him with all the accolades today. All right. Well, let's jump into this fun episode here. This is episode 15. As most of you may know, we do 20 episodes a year on this, and this is episode 15. So we have 5 more for you guys after this one. And this one is fun. This one is directed towards a certain type of individual. We all know them. You may actually be this person. And this is a person who a lot of times forgoes their own personal selves in order to be present and helpful and willing to do for others, right?
Yeah, for that reason, they're often seen as agreeable, helpful, kind, attuned to other people's needs and wants.
The kind of person that makes you feel bubbly and free, right? No. What we're talking about are those of you who are people pleasers or consider yourself to be people pleasers.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, you might be engaging in people-pleasing behaviors without realizing that you're doing it. And so we're going to give you some more information about what is people-pleasing, what might people who engage in people-pleasing behaviors gain from doing this, what are they actually seeking, right? Because it's not usually just helping people. There's usually a lot more running in the background that's actually keeping that individual feeling emotionally and probably physically also exhausted.
People-pleasing is actually another form of self-neglect and self-sacrifice, right? From an unhealthy standpoint. Usually people-pleasing comes from a place of desiring significance, right? I need to do something for you so that it helps you in some way so that I feel better about myself, right? It's an external way of making me feel worthy or of me finding my self-worth.
Right, which is the mindset behind people-pleasing that makes it so detrimental, right? These individuals are oftentimes highly empathetic, but also are lacking boundaries and lacking the ability to not only articulate their boundaries, but to hold people accountable to their boundaries, because part of the people-pleasing archetype is that you very, very much want other people's approval, and validation, and for them to like you.
Right. Which is getting a need met for them, right? To be well liked and accepted, welcomed, right? You're getting your needs met. But the problem with that is it is the wrong way to get your needs met.
Yeah, you're getting your needs met to your own detriment. Right. And that is what makes it a topic worth discussing, right? Because this people-pleasing behavior is it's rooted in childhood trauma. And so we'll talk about that some more and where it comes from, right? If you're thinking like, oh, well, I really just want to help people. I have no doubt that you want to help people, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but not to your own detriment. Right. That's what makes this problematic, right? Absolutely. And so we'll help you distinguish the differences between the two, right? Genuinely giving and wanting to help people can be done with limits, with boundaries, right? Within reason, and without hurting yourself, right? It's that concept of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on anyone else, right? A people pleaser is not doing that.
Right. And although we may think that, their actions are benevolent, right? Their actions are based in a very giving, positive contribution type of manner. But what you don't realize is that is actually a fear-based mindset. It's actually coming from some sort of satisfaction or a false feeling that of satisfaction that you're trying to gain, right? So it is not rooted in positivity at all. It's not rooted in love. It's not rooted in growth or real contribution. It comes from a fear basis. Right?
Yeah. Fear of what? Fear of avoiding negative consequences in your relationships.
Right.
That is what the fear is based on, right? So it's a fear-based mentality. It's also ego-based.
Yes.
Right? The fear is the need for security, and the ego has a need for significance.
Right.
Right. So under these circumstances, you're not actually giving and doing and serving and pleasing people out of the goodness of your heart or because it feels good to you to do that. Right. You're actually doing it because you're avoiding a negative consequence, in the very least, your own perception of a negative consequence of what will people say or what will people do if I say no.
Right.
Right. And so if it wasn't already resonating with you before, it probably is now. Right. If you're a person who struggles to say no, and you're consistently saying yes to things that you would like to say no to, or that you wish you had said no to once that date comes around on your calendar, then you probably feel me now, right? This is what this is based on, is people pleasing.
Yeah, and people pleasers are searching for external validation of their own self-worth,
Right.
versus finding their own sense of self-worth internally. All right, so I'm going to say that again. All right. If you're people pleasing, you're searching for your self-worth by externalizing, okay? You're not going to find it there. Your self-worth is an internal job, all right? It's not based upon all the things you do from somebody else that makes you feel worthy, okay?
Right.
It's an unhealthy place to be. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let us talk a little bit about the mindset and the values of people-pleasing personality types, like what actually happens to those people. We've already mentioned they usually have a low self-worth, right? This is the reason they're doing this, because it influences their self-worth. They may have low self-esteem.
Yep.
That's part of that. And then a low self-regard. So I will disregard myself in order to make you happy, do all the things that you want to do that will make your life better today. Right?
Right. And also with the expectation that that person is going to reciprocate in some way, right? Even in the very least, if their reciprocation is that now they need you more, right? They now need you to do those things or to continue to do those things. They need to continue to get that benefit from you. And that's how you're getting those, your needs met for external validation and self-worth. Another one is, when you talk about mindset and values, fearing rejection and avoiding rejection and abandonment.
So if I don't do these things for you, then you
might leave me.
You might leave me,
Yeah.
right? If I'm not this person for you all of the time, then you might abandon me.
Right. If I say no, then you might get upset and leave, right? Which, speaking of getting upset, right, it's also about avoiding conflict.
Right.
At all costs.
Right. Or the fear of disappointment. Right. So this is why a lot of people, like if we're having a conversation and somebody like takes a deep breath and sighs, you go, you okay? Is everything all right? Can I do anything for you? Can I help you with something? Are you okay? Right. This happens a lot. Like this is a mindset and a value that people have started placing, or people pleasers have started placing in fear. Right. Is everything okay? I need to make it better if it is. Right. No, can I just breathe? Like,
that's the security check.
Right?
Yeah.
Can I just breathe?
Oftentimes it comes from childhood trauma associated with fearing and trying to avoid punishment as a child. Right. And so as a child, I think we'll talk a little bit more about this, but typically this individual grew up with overly critical or overly harsh parents, maybe parents who were very strong in their disciplinary style. And as a result, this child learned to have to become very attuned to their parents' needs and nervous system, and probably walked on eggshells in order to avoid aggravating their parents.
Right. Yeah. Which led you down a path of trying to, or having the desire to be liked versus respected. Right. Which is, we've mentioned this in previous podcast episodes as well, about being liked versus being respected and which one is better. And I'm going to tell you that being respected is a much higher priority for you than being liked ever will be. right? Not everybody's going to like you.
Yeah, you have to give up some part of yourself in order to be liked by everyone all of the time. But if you're a people pleaser, you're accustomed to giving up parts of yourself, right? You have been practicing self-abandonment. You need other people to need you, right? And you have an uncontrollable need for the approval of people that it's hard to get that from. Right?
Exactly.
Their approval is elusive, right? And so again, you had that harsh parent growing up. You never really felt approved or accepted by that parent. And you just keep recreating these relationships where getting that person's affection, approval, acceptance is hard.
Right.
And so what do? Acts of service. You keep doing to try to get those things from that person. And again, approval, acceptance, those are all internal things.
Along with happiness of other people, right? My happiness is my responsibility, not yours. Your happiness is your responsibility, not mine. But people pleasers make the other person's happiness a priority, or they actually believe that they have control over that. Right? Which is a horrible place to be. You're not responsible for somebody else's happiness.
It is an ego-based mentality, and again, it serves to your own detriment.
Right.
A person values praise from other people and also has little self-awareness about the way that they're coming across in their people-pleasing behaviors and tendencies that are actually making other people feel off-put, feel turned off, and feel like they want to push you away.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because you need to be able to gain this self-awareness to be able to understand how people-pleasing shows up, not only in your personal relationships with maybe your spouse, partner, parents, children, but also how it's showing up in the workplace for you in a way that is not helping you. And so when a person is unaware of their people-pleasing tendencies, oftentimes they just think, well, I just want to help everybody out and make sure everybody's okay and, be the best and everybody get along. And on the surface of it, that sounds,
amazing,
benevolent. Yeah. But what you don't realize is the way that you're coming across isn't benevolent. The way you're coming across is pushing and pulling, right? Rather than understanding the temperature in the room.
Absolutely. So there's some typical actions, or I will say typical, there's a bunch of actions and behaviors, right, that these people will do. But I want to touch on, probably 10 or so of these just really quickly, just to kind of give you guys an idea, because some of you might think I'm not a people pleaser, but if you're engaging in any of these actions and behaviors, chances are you have some people pleasing tendencies, okay?
Yeah, so that's true. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the mindsets and the values are oftentimes subconscious. But what isn't subconscious are your actions.
Right.
Your thoughts and your actions are not subconscious at that point. And so if you had any doubt that you're, subscribing to these mindsets, listen to these actions, because if you are engaging in these actions and behaviors, then you subscribe to one or more of the mindsets that we talked about just now. Right. Because actions always give away a person's values and mindset. Absolutely. 100% of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's jump in. So if you find yourself frequently apologizing for shit that's not your fault, that's a people-pleasing mentality.
Yeah.
Right? So if, like, say your child is coming home from school and they got a bad grade and you're apologizing to them for their bad grade and trying to figure out what you can do.
Apologizing to them for how they feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a great thing. Okay.
When we talked about being attuned to other people, we're really talking about an over-attunement, right? You become over-observant of other people's micro-expressions and their verbal nuances, and you make them about yourself, right? So a person does a big sigh, and it's like, what's going on? What are you okay? Is everything all right? Are you mad at me?
Right. Yeah, which is that security check-in, right? So, and what you're really doing is you really, on a lower level, on a hush-hush level, you're not doing it because you care about them. You're doing it because you want to ease your own anxiety in that moment. If you feel like something's wrong with them, it gives you anxiety and you want to fix it. It doesn't have anything to do with them. It has to do with easing your own anxiety in that moment.
Yeah. Okay? And I'll tell you what, people can feel that.
Yeah.
People can feel that your check-in doesn't have anything to actually do with caring about them. If you're externalizing blame on other people for your feelings, you're engaging in these behaviors that are people-pleasing.
Right. One of my favorite one is the excessive self-deprecating humor. Okay. So, well, what is that? Check this out. You've all done that, or not you've all done this, but you've heard someone do this before. Okay. So your hair is so pretty. I wish I'd get mine to look like that. Mine's so drab and dull and boring.
Right.
I don't know whether you just complimented me or you're looking for me
Put yourself down.
to console you. Like, I'm so confused right now. I don't know what you did, right? But you use somebody else's positive thing to put yourself down in a self-deprecating type of way. All right?
Yeah. And to that person listening, it sounds like you're fishing for some type of compliment or verbal expression of empathy or, some sentiment to uplift yourself, right? And so it's like the compliment only went out in order to get something in return for yourself, right? Validation.
Right.
That's seeking external validation we keep talking about.
That's it.
Right? Accommodating everybody else's needs and undermining your own needs, right? Acting like you don't have needs or just being so disconnected from yourself that you really truly believe you don't have needs or that, you don't have any type of right to make your needs present or known in a space or in a relationship. If you're doing that, you're most likely engaging in people-pleasing behavior.
Right. And overgiving is another one. So you just give and 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 give.
Yeah.
And even when people aren't asking you for it.
Yeah. I would say overgiving looks two ways, what you just described. And also overgiving is giving something much, much larger and valuable beyond the context of the circumstances, right? So you just met somebody a month ago, right? Now it's their birthday and you buy them this incredibly big, expensive gift, right? Or throw them a party and you just met them, right? And their perception is that your gift is much larger than what is commensurate for the value in the relationship, right? And so it's very hard to reciprocate that.
Right. Or larger than what was asked for.
Yeah.
Right? Like some people like, hey, I would like a couple chairs for my back patio so I could sit out by the fire. And they buy you like a $10,000 back patio whole set that you didn't ask for, right? So.
Yeah, or like I just would like something low key and to just spend time together, and then they throw you a big surprise party with a bunch of people that you don't know or care for.
Right.
Right.
Yep. These people often will not have their own ideas of how to make things work or want to contribute to the what's the word I'm looking for? They don't know how to contribute their own thoughts and ideas. They want to go with the flow of other people, right? So I'm going to listen and whatever it is that you guys want to do, I'm totally fine with. You just tell me what I can do to help, right? They don't ever have their own institution. They don't ever have their own ideas or things to contribute. They just want you to make the decision and then them to be able to flood with all the help that they can give, right?
Right. Yeah, that usually also is an indication of weak or no boundaries. And or a broken frame, right? No personal frame. Too agreeable in general, right? Won't go against the grain, won't disagree with anybody in the group, won't even give a counter opinion in a conversation.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the person who's like, if you're ever watching like Discovery Channel and there's a shark on there and somebody says, oh my God, they're so terrifying. The people pleaser will be like, yeah, they are. And somebody else goes, but they're so majestic. Oh, they're so majestic. They're so beautiful. But they're also terrifying. But they're so beautiful. But they're also like this. They want to just agree with everyone, even if those agreements are conflicting with each other.
Right. Which is why they don't assert themselves. Yeah. They rarely say no. I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
Right? Rarely say no to things. So if you're saying yes when you really mean no, then you're probably ending up in some awkward situations that you don't really want to be in. And in order to just mentally justify and normalize ending up in that situation, you're probably then blaming that person for your being in that situation.
Right.
Right. And so you're saying like, oh, like I only said yes because you, right, fill in the blank, whatever it is. You made me feel pressured, or you were so nice, or whatever it is. Right. And so probably find yourself in all kinds of situations, from making purchases for things you didn't really want to, ending up in places and in situations with people that you don't really want to be with.
Yeah. Overspending money to go do things just because you wanted to please or say yes to something. Yeah. So there's a lot of these actions in behaviors, and I'm sure some of you've who heard these examples we just gave went, oh my God, I'm doing that shit. And then, or you might have thought, hey, my so-and-so does that, or such and such at the office does that. So there's a ton of these examples. Like I said, we could create a whole hour-long podcast just talking about examples of what people-pleasing looks like. But now that we've given some mindset examples and we've given some actions and behaviors, where does this stem from? We mentioned the childhood portion earlier, and usually childhood and the parenting, right? The inconsistency in the parenting. So let's break this down a little bit. Obviously, disclaimer, neither one of us are psychologists, but we've had the opportunity to work with people who tend to do this. And if you're a business owner doing this, you're going to drive yourself batshit crazy. And so we've each equally dealt with these individuals. So, and usually when you start breaking them down and coaching them, you find that there is a childhood parental inconsistency, correct?
Yeah, what I call a parental wound, which is something that became wounded in childhood, right? So it's an inner child wounding where is caused typically by parents or caregivers, but can happen for a lot of different reasons. But one of them is having an inconsistent or an emotionally unavailable parent, right? Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. And that could be physically and or emotionally, right? They could be physically present, but emotionally unavailable. And so that inconsistency creates this feeling of anxiousness in the child. The other one is the overly critical and demanding parent that I mentioned earlier. I think more than anything, you can encompass this in any of these things can be encompassed basically in the parent who has a dysregulated nervous system. One of the primary roles of a parent or caregiver is to help a child by modeling how to regulate their nervous system, right? A parent models for a child how to regulate their own nervous system. They help a child regulate their nervous system. That's why oftentimes when a parent or a mother or a well-known caregiver picks up a baby, they can get them to stop crying because they co-regulate their nervous system, right? When a parent has a dysregulated nervous system, they can't help their child self-regulate their nervous system.
Right.
And so typically people-pleasing behavior, the reason it's a trauma response is because it's working to close the gap between an individual and the fact that they can't self-regulate their nervous system.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you have there's times a history of mistreatment as well, right? Which leads you seeking this emotional gap. You're trying to close that emotional gap. You're trying to get those emotional needs met, and those needs could be anything from approval to acceptance, validation, love, security, significance. Like there's so many different things. You know, I equate this to the child who, as hard as they work, they never do anything good enough for the parent.
Yeah.
Right? Is kind of the where I see this, right? When I ask some of my clients, you know, hey, what do you remember about your childhood and acceptance and love? What was that based on? And a lot of times they'll say, well, you know, no matter how much I did, it still wasn't enough.
They had to achieve at a very high level in order to get any of their emotional needs met.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, this over attunement in a child is almost like a role reversal because the parent should be the one who is attuning to their child's needs and wants and desires and helping them regulate their nervous system. In this case of this type of wounding, the opposite occurred. The parent was dysregulated, so the child had to over attune to the parent's needs, wants, and desires, right? You see how backwards that is.
Right.
And so for that reason, there's many different things that a child can learn in order to close that gap that we talked about. People pleasing is just one of them, right? That results from this particular childhood wound.
Absolutely. And then when you carry this into your adulthood, and we mentioned this earlier, like you believe you're being benevolent. You believe you're coming from a place of love and contribution. But from the other person's standpoint, you're not. Right? There is an impact on other people, and it is not benevolence, right?
Yeah.
It is not one where they feel like, oh my God, they'll do anything for you. All you do is ask. I can't wait to talk to them. It doesn't do that for that person. You may believe it does, but I'm telling you it doesn't. It is a turnoff, right? And so it makes it's very difficult to navigate a relationship with a person that is a people pleaser because the boundaries are not there. And this people pleaser often doesn't respect your own boundaries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
they often have weak or no boundaries, and they have this implicit expectations that other people are going to have weak or no boundaries, at least with them, because I give you so much. Right. And so it's an inappropriate expectation in almost every single context of relationship. The other one is that the people that you're in relationship with often carry feelings of frustration because of the difficulty navigating a relationship with you, but they often also feel guilt because of your overgiving, and your overgiving makes it very prevalent that their inability to reciprocate at the same level, right? They're either unable or unwilling to reciprocate at that level, and so that creates feelings of guilt in them.
Right. Yeah, it can also signal that the pleaser is not as skilled and is trying to make up for it by pleasing, right? So I may not know all there is to know about this particular subject, but I'm going to do all the things that I can do around this particular subject to make it seem like I know what the hell I'm talking about, right? So
that's common in the workplace.
It's fake confidence is what it is, right? So
Yeah.
you have an incompetence in this particular situation, but I'm going to fake it till I make it. Right. And people can sniff that shit. The more and more you do it, they're going to find out that that's what you're doing. Right. You're not seeking to actually be present because you know what it is that you're doing. You can contribute. You're seeking to be present just so you can find a way to please people. Right?
Yeah. It could also be sending unintended messages or mixed signals to people, mostly because of your inability to set limits and your inability to say no. Right. And so, this is where, some people get caught up in this niceness factor.
Right.
Right. And so they want to be nice all the time. They want to be agreeable all the time. And so let's say instead of just expressing, hey, I'm not interested in whatever you're presenting,
Right.
You create a situation that's ambiguous and convoluted. And you send a mixed signal in that because you're not directly saying no. And so your response, instead of being a clear yes or a clear no, it sounds like maybe kind of sort of tell me more. Right. And if you don't really want to hear more, if you just wish that person would go the hell away, you end up in these really awkward, strange situations in your relationships with people. And then you say it's them doing it. It's you doing it through your lack of clarity.
Right, because you come across as insincere at that point.
Yeah.
Right, and so people will believe you to be fake. Right, people are going to think that you're artificial. They're not going to really believe they know the real you. Right, so and they're right because you've become an automaton to other people. In other words, you're molding yourself to fit every situation. Right, to be liked. And nobody knows what stance you have. Nobody knows what you're actually good at. Nobody knows what your boundaries are, right? Nobody knows anything about you. And so because they don't know anything about you and all they see you doing is trying to fill gaps everywhere that you can, they're going to see you as artificial. They're going to see you as fake.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so common. It's sad. What it makes me think about is, the fact that people who engage in people-pleasing behaviors, oftentimes one of their deepest complaints is not feeling accepted, not feeling like people accept them in relationships, right? Like, why can't, this is just me, this is just how I am, why can't you accept it? Because that's not you and that's not how you are, that's how you're being. It's not, you're not showing up with who you are, you're showing up as how you think that this person wants you to be, right? And so in your request to be accepted, you're asking people to accept a false version of you. And that's why they can't. And this is all subconscious.
Right.
These aren't actual conversations that are happening because most people can't articulate this because they can't see it in their consciousness, right? But, you're essentially, consistently feeling rejected and unaccepted because you're asking people to accept a version of you that you created based on what you think they want.
Yeah. So if you go back to the last episode that we just did was on expectation, right? So what you've just done in this situation is you've given yourself a self-imposed expectation based upon a subconscious contract that you've created about what you believe the other person expects from you.
Rather, you never ask them what they want or expect.
Right. Yeah. You just created a contract. You created a deal in your mind that they co-signed off of that they never got a chance to read or agree to, right? And you're fulfilling on a contract and self-imposing the expectation in a way that's off-putting to the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, coming across very insincere. Again, those mixed signals, like people are interacting with the people pleaser going like, do you like me or do you not like me? Or, I'm not even really sure, like you were this way at this place with your friends, but today here with my friends, you're totally different,
Right.
You're a different person in every single space and place, right? And so that kind of like chameleon effect is very hard for people to accept and trust, right? And then no wonder you feel rejected and not accepted, because what you're asking people to accept is not possible.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So we have a few questions here for a self-assessment, right? So if you're on the fence, like I do some of these, but I don't do some of these, am I a people pleaser? Am I not a people pleaser? So if you're in denial, all right, then we are going to kind of go over these quick self-assessments, right? So are you a people pleaser? So first question, am I accurately representing my own needs and values?
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Am I accurately representing my own needs and values? And in order to accurately represent them, you must know what they are.
Right. I was just thinking the same thing.
So if you don't know what they are, then if you just went to yourself, oh, what are my needs and values? We talking to you.
Then you're not accurately representing them if you don't know what they are, because you can't accurately articulate them. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been there, right? Mm-hmm. That was my younger self. Mm-hmm. And also, part of the process of getting to know yourself and to kind of cure this disconnect that most people live with within themselves of, who they are and like who they want to be way out here and being a different person in all these different circles, that gets cured when you come back home to yourself. And part of that homecoming is understanding your own needs and values.
Right. And second one, do I give excessively in comparison to what I get in this relationship?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good question to be honest with yourself with,
Do I give excessively in comparison to what I get?
Yeah. And if what's coming up for you is like, well, I have to be that way with this person, I have to do this or it won't happen, or, like whatever your perception is, that if you don't overgive, something will be broken down either within that person or within the relationship, right? That's your ego talking.
1,000%. Okay. Number 3, there's 5 of these, by the way. Number 3, in conversations, do I insult myself while complimenting others? We talked a little about this earlier. Right? I used the hair thing, right? Oh my God, your hair's so pretty and curly and nice. It's not like mine. Mine's all dingy and dull, right? If you're doing that, that is a self-serving, people-pleasing type of situation, okay? So, and I know that sounded weird, right? Self-serving and people-pleasing, right? Because it's really what you're doing. By people-pleasing, you're serving yourself, okay? You're not there to serve others. You're serving yourself, okay? Fourth one, in work settings, do I take on more than others? All right? Am I the one that says yes to everything, even when I want to say no?
Yeah, even when you're overloaded.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you the one that at work, when somebody says, oh, we're having a birthday party, do you feel like you're the one that has to do all of the things or not? If not, it won't get done correctly, right? I have to do it all. Sure, I'll take it on. I'll go do this. I won't ask for anybody's help. I'll just handle it. And then once it's handled, I hope that somebody notices me enough to say, you did a great job on this. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. And then lastly, do I say yes even when I really want to say no?
Yeah, so common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Very, very common form of self-abandonment. So ask yourself those 5 questions, right? This is a little mini self-assessment. This is with yourself, so it doesn't hurt to be as honest as possible, right? Radical honesty is the best way to go with yourself, especially if you're going to get to the place where you can get the self-awareness to be able to recognize that you have this wound so that then you can get the help. Right? So it's a very difficult wound to heal on your own, but oftentimes it helps to work with a coach or a therapist to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and if you do have this type of people-pleasing behavior, how can we dismantle it? Mm-hmm. All right. So that's the question, right? We've identified it. Yes, you got it. How do I get rid of it, right? How do we dismantle it?
Yeah. So the first thing is self-compassion, understanding where this comes from. When I think of self-compassion, I don't see any way of practicing self-compassion without understanding inner child work. because you have to be able to connect with a part of yourself that you can actually feel empathy toward, right? And so a lot of times it's not easy to feel empathy toward your current self, especially if you're in a really negative mindset, right? And that's starting to bring up negative self-talk and maybe even feelings of self-hate. But when you think about yourself as your younger self, right? Whatever the youngest age that you could see yourself as a child, just trying to survive, right? And navigate the world as a baby or a child, then you could really start to experience some compassion towards yourself and the circumstances that you were in at that time that led you to become the adult that you are today.
You also need to understand that you are not responsible for other people's feelings all the time.
I think that's confusing for a lot of people, right? Especially if you've been practicing the opposite. Do you want to elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, so we use this common little phrase here is, when you do X, I feel Y, and it makes me think Z, right? So if you do a particular action that causes a particular feeling, right? I don't have control over the feeling. I have control over the action that I did. And I can fix the action. It doesn't necessarily mean that your feelings of sadness or hurt or pain are going to go away immediately, right? That may take some time. So think about anybody who's ever done something wrong to you that hurt your feeling or broke your heart or whatever. They apologized and you forgave them, but you still had the feeling. You were still upset for a little while, right? So I'm not responsible for your feelings. You're responsible for your feelings. I'm responsible for my actions, right? I can't fix the hurt, the pain. I can't make you happy, right? I can't just magically shoot joys of sunshine beams of joy into your life, right? That doesn't happen, okay? It is one of those things where other people are in control of their own feelings. The only thing that you can control is your actions, all right? And what the feelings make them think about you, right? Did I hit that right?
Yep, absolutely, yeah. Another one is understanding your own needs and your limits, and you'll notice that your needs will put limits on you, right? And so once you understand your own needs and your own limits, then you can have more reverence and respect for yourself and the fact that, you are where you are with your needs and your limits, right? Like, I can only stay awake so many hours a day.
Right.
I can only go so many hours without fueling my body, And so when you understand your needs and your limits, you won't be willing to disrespect yourself by, let's say, saying yes to going somewhere and doing something with someone that's going to keep you further away from the next time that you can have a meal when you're starving now. It's like, no, I have a need to take care of myself right now. I'm going to go do that now, and then we can talk, and then we can interact or go wherever. Right. But I need to take care of myself first, right? And
there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
All right. You cannot pour from an empty cup, everybody. You just can't. It's not possible.
You've got to be able to develop more reverence and respect for yourself and your body. And but to do that, you have to understand what your needs and limits are.
And you also need to examine your intentions, right? So what am I, by offering to do this or taking this on or constantly feeling like I have to be on all the time, right? What are my intentions? Right? What am I actually intending to do? Am I doing this out of pure love and desire to contribute to somebody else's life? Or am I doing this because the intention is I want some notice, or I need some gratification, or I need some respect, or I need people to like me, right? What are the intentions there?
Yeah. And then the last one is examine your triggers and what actually triggers your helping and your people-pleasing behaviors. Because if you really start to sit with that, impulse to people please, most likely the thing that you'll notice is that you are trying to soothe yourself from feeling anxious or insecure in that moment, right? And so the moment that, let's say, you step into a social setting, right, and there's a lot of people there, your anxiety or your insecurity triggers you, and now you want to start engaging in people-pleasing behaviors that might look like something like cleaning up after other people in a social gathering where you're a guest too, right? And now you've become the help, right? You've put yourself in that situation because you need something to do that will soothe your anxiety and your insecurity in a social setting. That's very common.
That drives me nuts when people come to my house and do that.
Very common.
I threw a little soiree. You guys came over. Why are you in my kitchen cleaning dishes right now? Oh, I'm just trying to be helpful. I don't need you to be helpful. I need you to go enjoy the party. Why are you so mad at me right now? Because I don't want you to clean the effing dishes. I want you to go enjoy the party. I'll clean the dishes later.
Right.
Like, you have to understand that while you believe what you're doing is helpful, it's off-putting for some people.
Right. If you've never done that, you know somebody who has.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Somebody came to your house and did it.
Right? Oh my God. Put your rings back on, Sally. Go back out to the party and enjoy yourself. Get out of my damn kitchen. All right?
So how do you stop people pleasing in your personal relationships?
Oh man, there's a bunch of ways to do this, right? One, you need to realize that you can be friendly without being somebody's doormat.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can be someone's friend, you can be helpful, you can be supportive, and also you don't have to say yes to every little thing that they want from you or that you perceive they want from you, right? Only to not get anything in return and then just think, well, I do all these things and they don't receive me or they don't appreciate me or they don't, I'm their doormat, okay? There's a difference there. You don't have to be all the things to somebody while foregoing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have people around you who actually care about you, they don't want you to forego yourself. Right? They actually, that's probably one of their relationship frustrations with you is that they see you denying your own needs, probably most likely not taking care of your health, your body, your mental health and well-being in exchange for, some of the other stuff that we've talked about. In terms of your people-pleasing behaviors, and so if people really care about you, they're probably constantly telling you to rest, to take time for yourself, to back off of certain relationships where you might be taken advantage of because of your overgiving, right? Et cetera. Because that's the other thing, right? When you're an overgiver, you're going to attract overtakers, people who are happy to take from you whatever it is that you got to give. Oh, you want to give me some more? Okay, come on.
And you yourself, typically, if you're an overgiver or a people pleaser, you're a really bad receiver. It makes you feel bad when somebody else has to do something for you, right? Yeah. So you cannot be a good giver and be a bad receiver.
Yeah. So one of the things you need to do is to practice receiving by asking for help, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, yes, maybe you can do that thing on your own, but just because you can doesn't mean that you have to or that you should, right? Take advantage of anybody who might be willing to help and practice receiving by asking them for help.
And some of you listening right now might be thinking, or maybe even used this phrase before, well, that's just the way I am. Oriana, what's the truth?
That's the way you're choosing to be in that moment.
Right there. It's not who you are. It's the way you're choosing to be.
Right.
I can't stand when people hide behind that. I'm just not the type of person that asks for help. It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
No, that's who you're choosing to be, is the person who doesn't ask for help.
Yeah.
Right. That is a choice. That is not who you are. Like there was, again, no magic rays of sunshine or unicorn fairy dust that sprinkled on you that said, you're going to be this way. You chose to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is you're valuing the payoff of associated with doing everything yourself and being able to say, I did it all myself, and whatever it is you're getting out of that, you're valuing that payoff more than you're valuing being supported by other people in your relationships. Right?
Yeah. Also, wait to offer your help when you're asked. Okay? Wait until you're asked. I know that sounds like it's some of you who just want to do for everybody. That's impossible for you to do. But I promise you, if you wait for somebody to come to you and say, hey, can you help me? Right? Will you take care of? You'll still have the opportunity to be a helper, right? And to please in a way that's welcomed, not in a way that you're just doing everything in a whirlwind and creating more chaos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I would say also, wait until you're asked, but also don't offer to help people if that's not something you would really want to do.
Right.
Right? Like, stop that already.
Well, let's take the offering let's take it a step further, right? I think it's offering unsolicited advice. All right. So a lot of people do this, and I try to be conscious, and I have friends who do this. They're like, well, I know you didn't ask my opinion, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Bruh, stop. Okay. So what is a better thing is to say, I don't want to give you any unsolicited advice right now. You didn't, or any unsolicited answers, but if you would like my opinion, I'm happy to give it to you. If not, then that's fine too. You ask people, you give them the option, and if they give you the permission, then you can give them your solicited advice at that moment.
Yeah.
Right? Okay?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Practice not saying yes when you really want to say no. It's going to hurt so good to be able to actually say no when you wanted to say no, right?
I love that phrase, though. Practice not saying yes. So you don't actually have to say no. You just don't say yes.
Yeah. Don't offer to do things that you don't really want to do.
Right. Period.
Just stay silent
Right.
and walk away.
Exactly. And then stop making yourself personally responsible for other people's shit.
Yeah.
All right. People who do stuff, mess something up, they create mistakes, whatever it is, that is their opportunity to learn from that mistake and to take ownership of that mistake. You are robbing them of their ability to take ownership of their own mistake and learn from it when you take ownership of their mistake. And secondly, you rob yourself of an opportunity to learn from their mistake and how they might handle it. You rob yourself of that opportunity, of that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay? So stop taking the fall for other people. Stop taking the blame on yourself. Let other people be responsible for their own stuff. Let them learn. You also learn from the opportunity that they've created from their own mistake.
Yeah, you're going to learn a lot about that person. You're going to give them the opportunity to practice being resilient and coming up with solutions on their own. You also let them practice asking for help, right? Because if they want your help and support, they could ask for it. And so, give other people the room and the space to figure things out on their own. And like Coach said, best case scenario, you're going to learn not just about yourself, but you're going to learn about that person.
Exactly.
Because you're going to see what they do when, within the context and frame of their own decision-making capacity.
Absolutely. How about some significant people-pleasing in the workplace? How do we stop that BS?
Yeah, stop overcompensating at work and making yourself responsible for other people's mistakes. That'd be one, right? Stop being the fall guy in the office.
Right.
Jeez. Aren't you tired of that?
Yeah, that can't feel good. Like, how many hours of sleep are you losing every night because you're taking on other people's junk? You're the fall guy, as Coach said. Like, it can't be great. Avoid overselling yourself, right? People who do this often will comment the same thing 3 and 4 and 5 times in a row, right? Stop overselling yourself.
Yeah.
Right? People know when you're doing it, right? It's just like we do sales talks all the time, and as any of you who've listened to me know that I love the whole principles behind sales and actually approaching sales from a service base. And so if you've ever been somewhere when someone's trying to oversell you, you can feel it and you know it, and it sucks, and you're like, I wish this guy would just leave me alone. I just want to look at shit. I don't want to be told about the latest and greatest and how great this is and how magical they are. I don't give a shit. I just want to look. Okay, so keep in mind that if you've experienced overselling at a store somewhere and you're a people pleaser, the people you work with have also experienced you in the same light.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing about high performance. People who are high performers, they underpromise and overdeliver, and they move in silence. Right. If you're in this people-pleasing mode, you're not moving in silence because you need external validation. So you need everybody to know every single step that you're doing. You're giving out the play-by-play, right? Like, people don't need to know that. They don't want to know that. It's not helping your image. It's not helping you be more well-respected or liked in the workplace. Say what you're going to do if you need to say it once, and then go do it. That's it.
Right.
Action takers, move in silence.
Let's get it. And only apologize once for your mistake. Okay. This drives me absolutely crazy. Oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry that such and such happened. How can I make it up to you? It's cool, man. Don't worry about it. I got it. It's no big deal. Everybody screws up. It's cool. I've done it before myself. It happened to me this amount of times. It's cool. It's no big deal. And then the next day or the next hour, man, I'm so sorry that happened. Like, you sure there's nothing that I can do to make it better? Like, over and over and over again. Stop. You said you were sorry. The response was, it's cool. Now your sorry just feels like you're searching for sympathy. Right? Just say you're sorry one time. It's simple.
Yeah. Same in romantic relationships. That over apologizing, it feels like you're trying to avoid actually taking responsibility by swooping in straight away with the apology with no explanation, no understanding of the impact of your actions, no conversation about what actually happened and why, how it could be avoided in the future, right? You just want to focus on like, I'm sorry. And that's not going to help shift the person out of their emotional state. But oftentimes what I see is a person continuously apologizing, almost thinking that the apology in and of itself should be the thing that makes their partner shift. No, that's not how it's going to work.
Yep, definitely not. Make sure you're curbing your impulse to jump in and do someone else's work. All right. Other people need to be responsible for their own stuff unless they asked you to jump in and help out or do something.
This is tough in the context of teamwork. Let's just go ahead and go there. I remember when I was in grad school, I used to hate working on team projects because you'd always have that person or people who weren't so-called pulling their weight, right? And so it's, the final grade is contingent on the contributions of the group, not just of the one or two people. So it's very easy, especially if you're a high achiever, to jump in there and just be like, forget it, I'll do it myself, right? And so you're doing your portion of the work, you're doing their portion of the work, and you've got those people who they know that you're going to jump in. They know it. They're waiting on it. They're like, I'll be over here with my feet up on my desk because I know any moment you're going to swoop in because your own anxiety isn't going to allow you to know that my portion of the project isn't getting done as quickly as yours is. You can go ahead and finish yours, and then you can come over here and finish mine, right? There will be people that will be in that mindset in the workplace. And what I want you to know about that, because you're probably thinking to yourself, well, yeah, that's the reason that I have to do theirs and mine. No. The reason you have to do theirs and yours is because you're willing. You're willing to do their work instead of being willing to deal with your own internal anxiousness and insecurity of seeing them not work as fast or at all, right? And doing something about that, right? So navigate that, consider navigating that in a different way, because what you're doing is enabling. You're enabling your teammates to not have to do what they're supposed to do.
Right. And then last but not least in the work world is let others make equal contributions. Okay. So you need to pause before you engage in activities that would be self-seeking. Okay. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I can handle that. I'll take care of the party for so-and-so's birthday. I'll get everything done. It's going to be fantastic and fabulous. And don't anybody else worry about it. I got it. Right. You're seeking some sort of appreciation from the group. And then you want to deliver on such a high level so that when the actual birthday party or the office party comes along, that everybody goes, oh my God, you did such an amazing job. This is so great. You're looking for self-gratification, right? Or excuse me, for external gratification from other people, right? So you need to stop and think before you engage in activities where you're seeking favor for yourself, right?
Yeah. So if this has been an eye-opening conversation for you, then it's probably because you're seeing some of these behaviors in yourself or in somebody that you really, truly care about. And so if that's the case, share this podcast episode with them, have them take the assessment, and give them the opportunity, the space to just hold within themselves the self-awareness about their own people-pleasing behaviors and whether or not that might actually be hurting them rather than helping them. Or if it's you, please consider how that might be hurting you in your relationships and in your business life rather than helping you to grow and move forward. So the best thing that you could do with that self-awareness is really seek to heal the place that it comes from, which is that childhood wound that we talked about.
Obviously this is a thing that takes time, right? Nobody's going to listen to a 1-hour podcast and go, oh, I've changed, right? So we would encourage all of you to, if you need help adjusting and changing your people-pleasing behaviors, to, seek help from either a counselor or from a coach who's qualified to do so to help you. Because I promise you'll have a much more satisfying life when you're not trying to make everybody else around you happy. And the concentration is on finding your own fulfillment, your own values and your own needs and desires first. Yeah.
The most ironic thing is that in those circumstances where you actually put yourself first and take care of yourself and are present with your own needs and boundaries and limitations, you actually get the thing that you have wanted all along, right? You get that feeling of validation and acceptance. You get that from within, and that desire to be liked and accepted and to belong in these groups and in relationships with other people. You actually get that too, because it's easier to be in relationship with you, right? So you can really have the best of both worlds just by healing this particular tendency called people pleasing.
Absolutely. Yeah, your self-worth is not found in the amount of things that you do or the accomplishments that you have, create, make, or the amount of hearts that you please across the planet, right? Your self-worth is never going to be found in that. So I encourage you all to take a good look at your people-pleasing behaviors and find ways to change that for yourself and therefore those around you as well. So thanks again for joining us. Another episode of Edgy Entrepreneur Season 2. If you would like more information on how to connect with us, we do have a private Facebook group we invite you to be in. We do live coaching in there a couple times a month. Also, you can text the word EDGY, EDGY, to 33777, and you'll get a text reply back that'll give you a link to go and join the group. So we look forward to seeing all of you in there in the very near future, and we'll talk to you again soon. Stay edgy.
Stay edgy, everyone.